Cassus Fett stands as a pivotal figure within the Mandalorian culture, embodying both its aspirations and contradictions. As a Mandalorian, his legacy is one steeped in both honor and bloodshed, reflecting the tension inherent in their warrior ethos. His contributions to the Mandalorian Wars are often examined through the lens of his role as a tactician, a soldier, and an ideologue, making him a subject of intense scholarly and fan scrutiny. To fully appreciate Cassus Fett's impact, one must consider the interplay of his motivations, the historical context in which he operated, and the consequences of his actions on the galaxy at large. Cassus Fett emerged during a tumultuous period in galactic history when the Mandalorian clans were intent on expanding their influence. The Mandalorian Wars were not merely a conflict for territory but a test of the Mandalorian way of life, as they sought to impose their warrior philosophy upon the galaxy. Cassus Fett's rise within this context was marked by his exceptional strategic acumen and unyielding commitment to Mandalorian supremacy. His military campaigns showcased a brilliance that won significant victories but also revealed a ruthless streak that would come to define his legacy. For example, his actions during the massacre at Kathar, where he sanctioned the annihilation of an entire species, are frequently cited as a testament to his willingness to go to extreme lengths to achieve his goals. This atrocity is viewed by many as a turning point in the Mandalorian Wars, signaling a shift from a traditional warrior code to a more pragmatic and brutal form of conquest. Fett's philosophy was deeply intertwined with the Mandalorian ideal of strength through adversity. He believed that weakness, whether individual or collective, was an inherent flaw that needed to be eradicated. This belief not only drove his military strategies but also informed his interactions with his peers and subordinates. Fett's leadership style emphasized discipline and efficiency, traits that elevated him to prominence among the Mandalorian clans. However, his insistence on these principles also created friction, as not all Mandalorians were willing to embrace his uncompromising vision. This internal discord highlights a recurring theme in Mandalorian history: the tension between individual autonomy and collective unity. Despite his achievements, Cassus Fett remains a controversial figure, even among his own people. Some view him as a hero who exemplified the Mandalorian spirit, while others see him as a cautionary tale of excess and moral decay. His detractors argue that his methods undermined the very values he claimed to uphold, turning the Mandalorian way of life into a caricature of itself. This criticism is particularly evident in discussions surrounding his role in the massacre at Kathar. While defenders of Fett might argue that his actions were a necessary evil, critics contend that they represented a betrayal of the Mandalorian ethos, which traditionally placed a premium on honorable combat. The indiscriminate slaughter of civilians, they argue, cannot be reconciled with the Mandalorian ideal of a warrior's honor. Cassus Fett's legacy extends beyond his military exploits. His influence can be seen in the broader trajectory of Mandalorian culture and its interactions with the rest of the galaxy. By prioritizing conquest and domination, Fett helped shape a perception of the Mandalorians as aggressors, a reputation that would persist long after the Mandalorian Wars. This perception had profound implications for how the Mandalorians were treated by other galactic powers, from the Republic to the Sith. The legacy of distrust and hostility fostered by Fett's actions contributed to the eventual fragmentation of Mandalorian society, as successive generations grappled with the consequences of his choices. Fett's relationship with the galaxy at large is further complicated by his status as a symbol of Mandalorian identity. For many, he represents the zenith of Mandalorian ambition, a warrior who sought to reshape the galaxy in his people's image. Yet this ambition came at a cost, both to his victims and to the Mandalorians themselves. The Mandalorian Wars, despite their initial successes, ultimately ended in defeat, with the Mandalorians suffering devastating losses at the hands of the Republic and the Jedi. Fett's vision of Mandalorian supremacy was thus never fully realized, leaving behind a legacy of unfulfilled potential and lingering resentment. Central to any analysis of Cassus Fett is the question of morality. Was he a product of his time, acting in accordance with the harsh realities of galactic conflict? Or did he cross a line that even the Mandalorian ethos could not justify? This moral ambiguity is part of what makes Fett such a compelling figure. His actions force us to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of war, the limits of loyalty, and the price of ambition. In many ways, Fett's story is a microcosm of the broader struggles faced by the Mandalorians, a people torn between their ideals and their desires, their past and their future. Cassius Fett's interactions with the Jedi and the Republic further illustrate the complexities of his character. While he saw these institutions as obstacles to Mandalorian dominance, his disdain for them was not rooted in blind hatred, but in a calculated assessment of their weaknesses. Fett's strategies often exploited the rigid hierarchies and bureaucratic inefficiencies of his enemies, demonstrating his keen understanding of their vulnerabilities. At the same time, his underestimation of their resilience and unity proved to be a fatal flaw. The Jedi, in particular, posed a unique challenge to Fett, as their philosophy and skills represented a direct counterpoint to the Mandalorian way of life. The eventual defeat of the Mandalorians at the hands of the Jedi and the Republic underscores the limitations of Fett's vision, as he failed to account for the power of collective resistance against tyranny. Coruscant, as the heart of the Republic, held a symbolic significance for Cassius Fett. To him, it represented everything the Mandalorians sought to overthrow, a bastion of order and control that stood in opposition to the Mandalorian ethos of strength through conflict. While Fett never managed to strike directly at Coruscant, his campaigns brought the Republic to the brink of collapse, demonstrating the extent of his strategic genius. Yet, this proximity to victory only serves to highlight the tragedy of Fett's failure, as his inability to adapt to changing circumstances ultimately doomed his efforts. Fett's downfall, and that of the Mandalorians, invites reflection on the nature of power and the challenges of sustaining it. The Mandalorians' reliance on strength and conquest, while initially effective, proved unsustainable in the face of a galaxy united against them. This lesson resonates beyond Fett's story, offering a cautionary tale about the dangers of overreach and the necessity of balance in the pursuit of power. As such, Fett's legacy is not only a reflection of Mandalorian history, but also a broader commentary on the cyclical nature of conflict and the limits of ambition. Cassius Fett's place in galactic history is thus a complex and multifaceted one, marked by both triumph and tragedy. He remains a figure of fascination not only for his military achievements but also for the moral and philosophical questions his actions raise. Whether viewed as a hero, a villain, or something in between, Fett's story continues to captivate those who seek to understand the intricacies of Mandalorian culture and its impact on the galaxy. His legacy, like that of the Mandalorians themselves, is one of resilience and contradiction, a testament to the enduring allure of the Mandalorian way of life. Cassius Fett's legacy also serves as a prism through which we can explore the Mandalorian psyche and its enduring struggles with identity, morality, and survival. The Mandalorian culture, as Fett represented it, thrived on a delicate balance of tradition and innovation, honor and pragmatism. Fett's actions and ideology force us to confront the inherent tension between these elements. As a man who believed in the Mandalorian ideal of strength above all, he personified their aspiration to forge a galaxy defined by their warrior code. However, his extreme measures, such as the massacre at Kathar, reveal the dangers of dogmatic adherence to an ideal, particularly when it blinds its adherents to the larger consequences of their actions. One of the most enduring questions surrounding Fett is whether he truly acted for the Mandalorian cause or whether his actions were driven by personal ambition and an unrelenting thirst for power. While his defenders often frame him as a selfless servant of Mandalorian supremacy, his critics point to his authoritarian tendencies and his willingness to sacrifice his own people's long-term stability in pursuit of short-term victories. For instance, the brutal efficiency with which he conducted his campaigns alienated not only the Republic and the Jedi but also other Mandalorian leaders who questioned his vision. This internal discord sowed the seeds of fragmentation within the Mandalorian ranks, weakening them in their most crucial hour. The massacre at Kathar remains one of the most pivotal moments in any analysis of Fett's character. While it solidified his reputation as a fearsome leader, it also marked him as a figure of infamy. The annihilation of the Kathar people was not simply a tactical decision. It was a statement, a message to the galaxy about the Mandalorians' ruthlessness and resolve. Yet, this act of genocide alienated potential allies and hardened the resolve of the Republic and the Jedi. The event also raises profound ethical questions. Was this act a necessary demonstration of strength, or was it a tragic overreach that tarnished the Mandalorian legacy? The answer lies at the heart of the debate over Fett's character and the legacy he left behind. Fett's role as a tactician and military leader cannot be overstated. His campaigns showcased an unparalleled understanding of warfare, logistics, and psychological manipulation. He often targeted his enemies' morale, employing tactics that were as much about instilling fear as achieving strategic objectives. His near destruction of the Republic's fleet during key battles is a testament to his brilliance. Yet, Fett's reliance on fear and brutality also proved to be his undoing. These methods galvanized opposition, uniting disparate factions against the Mandalorians in a way that no other force could. The Jedi, initially hesitant to involve themselves in the conflict, ultimately became the Republic's decisive advantage, spurred into action by the atrocities committed under Fett's command. Coruscant's symbolic weight in Fett's ambitions cannot be overlooked. The Republic's capital represented the antithesis of everything the Mandalorians stood for: bureaucracy, stagnation, and centralized power. For Fett, bringing Coruscant to its knees would have been the ultimate validation of the Mandalorian way. Though he never succeeded in this goal, his campaigns brought the Republic closer to collapse than many would like to admit. The Republic's ultimate recovery and victory, however, underscore the limitations of Fett's vision. While he excelled in conquest, his inability to build sustainable systems of governance or foster alliances left the Mandalorians vulnerable to retaliation and defeat. The aftermath of the Mandalorian Wars reveals the true cost of Fett's ambition. While his military strategies left an indelible mark on the galaxy, they also left the Mandalorians in a weakened state, scattered and disillusioned. The Republic's subsequent efforts to dismantle Mandalorian society and ensure they would never again pose a threat were largely successful, due in no small part to the groundwork laid by Fett's short-sighted methods. This raises the question: did Fett's pursuit of power ultimately betray the Mandalorian people, leaving them vulnerable to the very forces he sought to conquer? Fett's personal legacy within Mandalorian culture is equally fraught. While some revere him as a hero, a symbol of Mandalorian strength and ambition, others view him as a cautionary figure, a leader whose inability to temper his ruthlessness with wisdom led to the downfall of his people. This duality is emblematic of the broader Mandalorian struggle with their identity as warriors in a galaxy increasingly hostile to their way of life. Fett's story thus becomes a lens through which we can examine the challenges faced by the Mandalorians in balancing their traditions with the demands of a changing galaxy. In exploring Fett's character, one cannot ignore his parallels with other historical and mythical figures who grappled with similar dilemmas. His story evokes comparisons to tragic heroes whose greatest strengths also proved to be their greatest weaknesses. Like them, Fett was a figure of immense potential, whose inability to adapt to the changing dynamics of the galaxy ultimately sealed his fate. His story invites us to reflect on the nature of leadership and the fine line between ambition and hubris. Cassus Fett's legacy is, in many ways, a microcosm of the Mandalorian experience, a people defined by their contradictions, striving for greatness yet often undone by their own excesses. Fett's actions during the Mandalorian Wars highlight the heights to which the Mandalorians could ascend, but also the depths to which they could fall. His life and legacy remain a testament to the complexities of Mandalorian culture, as well as a cautionary tale about the costs of unchecked ambition and the perils of sacrificing principle for power. In the end, Cassus Fett's story is not merely a tale of conquest and conflict, but a profound meditation on the nature of strength, morality, and legacy. Whether celebrated as a hero or condemned as a villain, Fett remains a figure of enduring fascination, his life a reflection of the Mandalorian spirit in all its brilliance and brutality. His actions continue to shape the galaxy's perception of the Mandalorians, ensuring that his name, and the questions it raises, will echo through history for generations to come.